Welcome to Genesis, Impact Plus's show. I did do one, guys. I did promise I would do it, and I'm doing it. I done it. I done it. I gotta say this. The ending of the show was really good. I'm making this very clear right now. The beginning all the way into the middle was alright. Near the end was good. And then the ending was a surprise, and I loved it. That's just me. You guys can tell me below. If you ever catch this, you'll tell me yourself how you feel about it. But that's just me. I gotta say this though, the major glaring weakness of this show was there was no sound. Not that you couldn't hear anything, but there was no cheering, there was no booing. Guys, if anybody says it's better to keep Impact like this, you got another thing coming. I'm sorry. I know everyone's worried about what's going on with the pandemic. I know. But if you look currently at AEW, they have not had any of their fans get sick. It's not been reported sick. Yes, they've had some people who have been exposed, but every time when someone is exposed, they address it, and the person's not on the show for the next 2 weeks. And that shows they're professional. They take care of the roster, and they make sure their fans are safe. There's been no sign of anyone so far that is a fan that gets sick. So when it comes to Impact, I'm sorry guys, they need to finally get fans in now, because the show felt so empty. Just like the regular Impact shows, this one should have been special, and it just didn't feel 100% special because it was too damn quiet. I'm telling you right now, if anybody says, hey, it's not right to do it, no. AEW's done it, and they've done it right. Impact could as well. They can. Even if it's in a smaller venue, you don't have to have 50 people there. You can have 10 or 10 or 15 people. Just space them out. There you go. Now, the Super X Cup. It was good. It was good, but one week match, but the rest was pretty good. Ace Austin versus Suicide. Now, I'm going to be honest here. This was the first match, and it was okay. But I got to say this about Suicide, and I do believe it's Caleb Connery. Caleb with a K. I'm not against Caleb. He is really good in the ring, but he doesn't fit Suicide. He just doesn't. He's not as agile as TJP was. He's not as agile as a Low Key. He just isn't the type as a Suicide. He's got the personality of Suicide, yes, but when it comes to the skill in the ring and his agility, he just does not have it. He doesn't. I'm just being honest here. Doesn't mean he isn't a good worker. He is, but there are certain workers. You got some who are extremely agile. You got some who are great hard hitting. Who's some that's an all-around great wrestler, but he's just not an extremely agile wrestler. He isn't, and he doesn't fit a Suicide who's extremely agile, who's crazy beyond stink, that will literally do whatever it takes to win. That's just the truth. Now, second match. You got Blake versus KC. Now, this was interesting. And the interviews before each match, I did love it, because it did show they had attention to detail. You wanted to know who these people are. You wanted to hear about Davari. And you saw Davari talking. You actually see, guess who you saw on screen? I didn't catch the image. You see a young Xavier Woods, who was once in Impact Wrestling, TNA at the time, was wrestling against Davari, which was nice to see. But seeing all of these guys' own interviews, including Crazy Steve, was actually very nice. I did enjoy it. Now, the thing that got me when it came to KC and Blake is better in the ring and more of a character in the ring than KC is. But KC is way more charismatic. As a character, Blake is extremely watered down. So watered down, it's like you think of a Daniel Bryan when he's extremely young in the business. Not even fully an American Dragon. If you see him as a Daniel Bryan. Then you see a KC who's like an early form of The Rock. He has that charismatic attitude. Even when he wrestles, he's very charismatic. He's okay in the ring. He's good. But if you compare him to Blake, KC is not as great as KC. But KC is more charismatic. If you could stick them both together, you would have a great combination of one who's extremely good and feels good in the ring in telling a story with the person that has a great charisma and a great personality. That's what you really need between these two guys. Each one of them got something what the other needs. Now, Blake wins. I wasn't surprised. I didn't think KC was going to win here. But admittedly, I wouldn't mind seeing both of them in the company. KC is charismatic. I want to see that charisma more. The match that I felt was the flattest of all of them. Now, not taking anything away from either one of these guys, but it did feel a bit flat. Davari versus Cousin Jake. And the thing that got me was when they did their interview. Cousin Jake really did sound good. But Davari looked good. And then at one point, as he was explaining that he's been in the business 20 years, he started up his own company to train people. He started breaking down how wrestling in its essence is supposed to be, how he's become way more better as a wrestler. It really did help the match later. But the thing that made me feel really good and showed how TNA used to be, you got Xavier Woods in one of the scenes with Davari. Now, I know no one's going to care about that, but it does show that Davari has been around long enough that he went up against the now known Xavier Woods, Austin Creed, what used to be possibly called Austin Creed. He was in TNA at one point. So that was well before I was able to see TNA, because I couldn't see TNA back in the early to mid 2000s. I just couldn't. So it was good to see that. But the match was extremely slow. It's not because these are two lumbering guys. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not against them working the ring and working their style. It was very impactful. And I did enjoy that part of it. And there was some level of strategy from Davari. But you're comparing Davari, who has a level of strategy, compared to a Cousin Jake, who doesn't really do that. He's a high-impact tag team wrestler that is working a singles tag team. You see me botching because when you really see this, you got a tag team wrestler who doesn't have charisma, who's really used to working in a tag team more than anything else, with a guy who is able to work by himself and can be a ring general when he needs to be, and they didn't mesh very well. It just didn't seem to really work very well for me. It didn't flow that well. Now, anybody else would probably say it wasn't bad, and it wasn't. But in the end, it just felt like it was too slow, and it wasn't really flowing correctly. And Cousin Jake did win. Now, you got Trey Lamar versus Crazy Steve. Now, this was interesting. Crazy Steve, in this situation, like the last Impact, seeing that Crazy Steve won the match was actually surprising. I didn't expect him to win over KC and Blake. And also Raju. I didn't expect him to win over those three. And then you see him again in this match, and he's throwing Trey off. He's throwing Lamar off. And this was an interesting story they were telling. It was funny most of the time. And it got interesting once the monkey got thrown out of the ring by accident. And it was cool. No, sorry, that was not in that match. That was in the next match for Steve. I'm sorry. I'm getting Trey mixed up with Blake. But I will say it wasn't a bad match. And it was funny seeing that Trey was trying his best to not get all freaked out because of how Crazy Steve was acting. And Steve won. Ace Austin versus Cousin Jake. And all this time, you got Madman Fulton by ringside. I didn't really mention him in the beginning because it wasn't necessary. But when it came to Cousin Jake and dealing with an Ace with Madman Fulton by his side, it did seem like there was something there. Like, I'm thinking, well, Cousin Jake may have another feud looming because maybe he'll go up against Madman Fulton, who's really not doing anything right now. The match was over after you got the fold on to Cousin Jake and you move on with it. I don't need to add anything to it because Cousin Jake really is a tag team specialist. He really isn't great by himself since he isn't tagging right now. He needs some work. He needs to get back into being a tag team, not from a tag team competitor to a regular singles competitor. That's just me, guys. Down below. This match, I felt was the second best match of the night for me personally. It was. It was better easily than Davari and Cousin Jake. And this is Jazz versus Jordynne Grace. I didn't expect it to be this good. Now, let's be realistic here. Jazz is in her 50s almost, or is in her 50s. She doesn't go like she used to in the ring. She doesn't have the physical strength like she did in the ring when she was younger, when she was in her 30s and maybe in her early 40s. She doesn't have the guns like she used to. She doesn't have the guns of a Jordynne Grace. But she does have the ring awareness that really did help the match for me personally. Anyone else will probably think, well, she was really slow. She seemed a bit sloppy. And yet, at certain points, she was sloppy. She's in her 50s, for goodness sake. She's not a young woman. She can't go like she used to. But she still has some decent stamina. She's still got some good strength. And she has good ring psychology. She made the ring work really feel good when it came to Jordynne Grace. She had to carry it, but it was Jazz who was leading it most of the time. And for me personally, it did feel good to see that. And the one thing that made me feel good for the entire match as I was thinking it, when you saw the interview for Jazz and she says, well, guess what? Jazz is back. I am so hoping that even if Jazz never comes on screen anymore, she is in the back, like I said, in what Impact Wrestling really needs is somebody there to help the younger talent. And like I said last week, I would love to see a Jazz as a trainer for Impact. They need someone who's credible, who has great understanding of how you work in the ring, how you do things for the ring, how your character could be. Jazz knows the business, and I wish she stays. Works in the back fine. In the ring, once in a while, or not too heavy. Because in this match, you could see she still got tanked. But in the end, Jordynne Grace wins. They have a nice hug, and I truly hope she does stay. Please, someone convince Jazz to stay as a trainer. Help the men and women to get better character development and ring awareness and how to perform. That's what I really hope for. And let's see. Finally, Blake versus Ace Austin. This was third best match of the night for me. It was good. It was well done. Both of these are good high flyers. Well, I'll say it like this. When it comes to Blake, he was more of a high flyer than Ace Austin was. Not saying Ace isn't a high flyer, but now that he's bulked up, he's more impact, more physical. You can see Ace has gotten a lot more bigger. And he cannot keep up with a Blake who's a lot smaller and a little more agile. This is actually a very good thing to see, because sometimes wrestlers who used to be really small and could be very agile, when they become more bigger, they have to transition from being less agile to be more impactful and maybe working on their style more than just flipping and jumping all over the place. Sometimes if they're really good, they can combine at least a good amount of what they used to be with what they are now, and they become great. So this could be the beginning for an Ace Austin to really start showing more impact, more charisma, and definitely more ring work, not high-flying ring work. In the end, Ace won. I didn't expect Blake to win. I do hope he's going to sign along with KC, but you never know. I'm hoping. Finally, the match of the night. Willie versus Moose. I Quit match. I didn't expect a lot from this. I didn't. Particularly, there was just no sounds there. We needed cheering and booing to really make this match mean something. We didn't have it. But even though they didn't have an audience at all, they still put the best foot forward in this. I did enjoy the match. Seeing 2 6-star frog splashes onto Moose from his stomach and his back was nice. Once Moose decided to do a go to hell off the top ring rope with a Willie and went for a table was good. Willie getting cut up on, I think it was this arm. He got his arm cut up. Really, he tried to sell it for the camera. Willie worked hard to sell everything that Moose gave him, which was good. It really did help near the end of the match, particularly that when he was about to, he put a chair around Willie's neck because he made it very clear, I'm going to end your career. He put a chair around his neck. He gets another chair. He's about to whack him. You see a Rich Swann come out. And he said, what are you doing? You're going too far. Because Moose is not trying to win anymore. He's just trying to destroy a Willie Mack. Make sure he never wrestles again. And Rich stops it and he says, what are you doing? Don't do this. You want this? And he's holding up his title. You see the picture in my face. He said, you want the title? I'll give it to you. You want a title shot? I'll give it to you. Stop. You want it? I'll give it to you. And he calls over the ref. I believe he holds the mic in his hand and he says, thank you. I quit. And he walks away. This is what the WWE does not understand how to do anymore. How to build someone up in a way that they're a heel. They're not chicken shit. They're badass. And they don't give a damn. They will destroy you to get what they want. This was manipulative. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He gave Willie all the options weeks ahead of time not to mess with him. And he planned that if this was going to happen, that he was going to destroy Willie. And if he's lucky, Rich will come out and give him the opportunity that he wanted. Now, the self-proclaimed TNA World Champion will now go up eventually, because we're not going to get it hard to kill. We will now eventually have the Impact World Champion face him. This was a good show. It wasn't perfect. The Jake and Davari match was not really great. The other matches were good. And Grace and Jazz was better than I expected. I really did enjoy the match. I liked how... I really did like how Jazz was leading the match. That was just me. And in the end, seeing that Willie got destroyed, Rich having to come out to save him, and give him a title shot, a future one, to Moose, who he just basically says, thank you, I quit. He doesn't do anything. He gets the business done and he leaves. Really was good, and this should lead into a good episode of Impact next week. But this is just my point of view. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace.